my friends. Welcome. J.R. Dukes at your service. Appreciate everybody joining me today. We got a good schedule all planned out for everyone. And we are going to be doing a simulcast with my friend David over at Red Pill News, and he'll be joining us any second here. All right. Welcome, David. How's it going today?
It's going well, JR. Lots of good news. Supreme Court. Biden couldn't have done any worse. So political landscape, it's great.
Fantastic. I want to welcome you and welcome your viewers to the channel. I want everybody to know I just put in the link where you can call into the show or you can join us live. You can use your video or not use your video. If you just want to turn your video off, there's an icon that you'll see. Just push it and it will turn off, and yet you can phone into the show, so to speak, and we'd be happy to chat with you and take whatever questions, because we've got some very important topics to talk about concerning this election. Briefly, I just want to say hello to Zach. And my friend Julianne is here. Nice to see you. And, of course, Red Pill News has a gift for you guys at rhinostopper.com. All righty. And then, as I just said, I put in the chat the link. It's very self-explanatory and very easy. All right. It looks like we're working on all the platforms. I know, David, you're checking yours out over there. We got a good crowd already. Fantastic. All right. Good enough. Okay. Let's go ahead and start this thing going. Wow. What a lot that has happened in the last 24 hours between this, I don't know, crazy debate that's been going on, and then boom, we got hit with a bunch of U.S. Supreme Court decisions that's been handed down. Two of them, if we have time, I want to talk about later. One of them pertains to the Chevron doctrine. Yeah. Very important, very consequential case. And then we have another case pertaining to the January 6th, I'll call them hostages. I happen to believe that. I'm sure you do too, David. And it's just a lot. Go ahead. Tell me what you think about that. What do you think about the last 24 hours here?
It's been so much going on. I mean, what shocked me the most was most of the Democrats on X were shocked that Biden has dementia or cognitive decline. They believe the fake news media, and this was the first time they were really awakened to the fact of how Biden is doing. No filters, just him on stage trying to keep it together. So that was amazing for me to see that like 30% of this country still believe that corporate narrative hardcore, and they were shocked out of their boots. And then today, as you mentioned, with the Supreme Court decisions, so much going on. It's really exciting in a good way.
Well, you and I have talked about this privately, offline, and online. This health situation with Joe Biden, what is really aggravating me about this whole situation, and of course, I've done my part. I know you've done your part, screaming as loud as we possibly can that there is a serious problem with Joe Biden, and the mainstream press, this legacy media, if you will, they have done everything. They have went out of their way to try to tell us, hey, guess what? You cannot believe your lying eyes. We know the guy clearly has some type of dementia. There's obviously some type of disease process taking place with this man. He is not fit to be the president of the United States. And the way I see it, David, even if, God forbid, a Democrat was to win, we need a Democrat that can do the job. What do you think about that? And what do you think about our adversaries seeing the current state of our president?
Yeah, I mean, at minimal, you need someone that can think and make decisions. Otherwise, you just have a vessel who can become the subject of whoever is around him, who pays the most money, that wants the influence. And, what was wild, my coworker had pointed out, I didn't watch the after debate party, but when Biden was speaking, apparently he sounded completely normal in the after debate party. So that we were hypothesizing is that voice where Biden sounded sick is actually probably his normal voice, and they've been using a microphone filter to make his old man frail voice sound normal 99% of the time. So I was shocked that he sounded normal right after the debate.
Yeah, and did you notice, and I think I have a clip up at the play here in a minute, Joe Biden gave a speech sometime this afternoon. I believe it was in the state of, it was Virginia or South Carolina, but I'll verify it here in a minute, somewhere on the East Coast. All of a sudden, mystery solved. He no longer has this cold that they told us he had. Did you notice that? His voice miraculously cleared up. It's like a miracle. How about that, huh? And I want to take this opportunity real quick and welcome my friend Sapphire Ridge to the conversation. Sapphire, how's it going? And what do you think about this debate that we
I
had?
I have some interesting insight.
Okay, let's hear it.
My cousin Billy is running for Congress in Illinois.
Okay.
He's one of the last Blue Dog Democrats. I talked to him this morning, and he said last night was devastating for Biden. He said Trump will be the next president. He also
I think I agree with that.
that Biden did a total crash and burn last night, that there is no recovery from this.
I agree with that, Sapphire. I don't
Yeah.
see how there can be a recovery from this type of display that he had the other day. You know, I had someone ask me this earlier, and I thought it was an interesting question. And David, I'll put it to you first. Let me ask you this. There's been a lot of people still coming out now and saying, hey, I still support Joe Biden. So he's got problems, big deal. He's effectively got a team with him. He'll be all right. And if he's not all right, well, that's what the vice president of the United States is for. But I still support Joe Biden. Now, don't quote me on that. That's not me saying them. That somebody else said that.
Yeah.
So my question for you, gentlemen, is this. What happens, hypothetically, what if it was reversed? And let's just say it was Donald Trump in this situation. My question for you is as follows. Would you still support Donald Trump if it was literally a reversed situation? And if so, why? David, you first.
My first instinct would be no, I would not, because I would just not want someone who can't think. But I would also secondarily have a moment that the Democrats, I think, are having, is that they believe so badly that Trump is the Antichrist, that PSYOP has worked against them so strongly. If Trump were completely in mental decline, but if he had good people around him, maybe I would still prefer Trump over Biden, but it would still be a bad situation. But the main point of that is I don't trust the people around Biden. I think they're Marxist. I think they're wanting to destroy the country. Why else import 10 million people in 3 years? So I'd have to think about that. My initial thought would be to say, no, I would not. But maybe I would if Trump had good people, because I do believe, even though he has faults, I'm not a worshiper of him, but I do believe that he would at least have better people than Biden.
Now, before we go to Sapphire, I want to just mention, if you are joining us now, we have a good crowd as of right now. We are on X, Facebook, and of course YouTube and Twitch. So my request is the following. You're listening to this podcast right now with all of us. What would you do? Please put it in the comments. You heard the hypothetical. If it was reversed and the decline was in President Trump and he's running for a second term, would you still support him, and why? Just briefly state it out if you can. I'd be interested in knowing your take. So, Sapphire, I'm going to put the question to you. Would you support Trump if the situation was complete reversal, and if so, why?
My thoughts are a little bit different. I have followed Trump for 30 years. Trump would do the right thing. Trump would step aside and let his vice president take over, because he cares more about the country than himself.
Well, I think that's an interesting take on it. I thought it was a good question. Like I said, I had someone ask me this earlier, and I was thinking, wow, that's a great question. And I would say, if you're asking yourself at home, why would people support Joe Biden, knowing all the stuff that's going on right now, knowing he's a man in decline, knowing he cannot do the job knowing the danger this puts our country in, I could understand and I could rationalize now as to why people would still support Joe Biden. They would be thinking like I would be thinking about Trump. In other words, it's not just one man. There's a team of individuals. There's a team of generals. There's a team of professionals. There's a vice president, God forbid, Kamala Harris as president of the United States. And what is the alternative? Think of it this way. If you're a Democrat, what is the alternative? You're going to support someone like Trump? And to bring it home for each and every one of you to think about it, what if it was reversed? Could you support Joe Biden and his crazy policies, his insistence that we use oil from overseas and not our own oil, his position on the border, open borders, his desire to take away our gun rights, he's allowing men to compete with women in sports? I mean, really, that would be the question you'd have to ask yourself. And if you said, oh no, Trump is sick, we have to elect Joe Biden, at least in my mind, it gave me a different perspective. What do you think there, Dave? Interesting.
Yeah, no, that's those policies. I can't imagine being further from those leftist policies, but they're beholden to them, much of the left, so that they would be thinking, you know, I'm going to stick with Biden. But I would hope if Trump would step down and replace himself with his VP, that it wouldn't be Mike Pence. Obviously, Mike Pence is not going to be his VP again. Kind of curious if it's going to be Vivek. I know we talked about Dr. Ben Carson, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's just going to be people that think Trump's going to be Adolf Hitler, and they're just not. They're like, all right, I'd rather have a man that's a mummy than Adolf Hitler.
You know, that's an interesting point on the VP. And I want to watch this video briefly. This is from Sky News. I love to see what the news is saying down under, because obviously United States and the Australian people are shoulder to shoulder in almost everything. And they are a very big supporter and ally of ours. So let's listen to this clip. There's a little bit of this I want to listen to, and then I'm going to make a comment about something interesting as far as the vice president situation is concerned. So, gentlemen, let's take a look at this and stand by here.
The morning after the debate before, and the mist hung heavy over Atlanta. It didn't cloud a clear-eyed and cold assessment that chilled the Democratic Party. 90 minutes had been a long watch in politics.
Now, this was Biden today.
The president found comfort among friends at a rally in North Carolina. Different setting, different Biden. Jill Biden wore a dress that said, vote. Team Biden said the message is he's staying in the race.
I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
The debate between two old foes had put the question of infirmity center stage. The performance of an 81-year-old president put it stage right.
With the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do.
You have to admit, this particular part was just absolutely pathetic.
With look, if
a question on immigration ended like this.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Joe Biden went for waffles after the TV debate, not before a quick stage appearance with his wife, the First Lady. It wasn't as awkward as the TV debate, but perhaps not far off.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts.
I love that part right there. I just have to say, gentlemen, it's almost like being in school and you're getting a participation trophy. She's like, Joe, you did such a great job. You answered all the questions. It's like, Joe,
such a low bar. Pathetic.
It's just pathetic. It's pathetic. Amen.
48 million Americans tuned in to the evening debate.
Thank you. Yeah. He wasn't. He killed that.
Afterwards, public faces of the Democratic movement fronted up their concerns.
He had to prove to the American people was that he had the energy, he had the stamina, and he didn't do that.
The universal reaction was somewhere approaching panic.
He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all.
The TV debate was triggered by Team Biden, designed to showcase strength and offer reassurance about the abilities of a Democratic president. Rather, it has imbued the party with a sense of crisis. Democrats who previously wouldn't listen to questions around infirmity are now openly calling for change at the top of the ticket, concerned at how bad Biden was and how bad he might get. Old, influential friends sought to steady the ship. Former President Barack.
It is stunning just how fast this man has deteriorated. Even if you look back at just the State of the Union back in January, the decline of this man is noticeable at a minimum. Have you noticed anything there, David?
Yeah, I mean, the job of the presidency, if you look at all presidents in modern history, the day they entered office, they swore the oath, the day they left, they look way older. It's a very stressful job. And if you already have someone that has mental decline, that has had brain trauma before, again, he had a stent because he had an aneurysm, it's going to even accelerate that aging more so. And it almost seems, too, as if maybe they got his cocktail, his drug cocktail off, because during the State of the Union, he seemed way more up than he did last night. I don't know. I mean, they kept him at Camp David for 7 days. Were they trying to figure out a concoction for him? I don't know if that failed or he just really declined that quickly.
After the debate, Erin Burnett kind of let the cat out of the bag.
What was said?
She said he was given a week. He was given the questions, and he still couldn't answer the questions when he had the questions.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Do you think that he had the questions ahead of time? That never occurred to me, but that would not surprise me.
It didn't to me either, but Erin Burnett said that last night.
Okay,
After the debate.
I can believe that. I mean, let's be honest about it. We know the legacy media is in the bag for the Dems for Joe Biden. I mean, I think that's pretty well spot on. So I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all hearing that. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm a little surprised because someone who owns about 37% of CNN, or their parent company, is a major Trump donor. He bought a bunch of shares with the intent of making CNN more left center, but not like insanely far left. But I mean, they fired Don Lemon, they fired Brian Stelter, but there's still Dana Bash can't hide it that she's woke. Neither can a couple other of their anchors. They even gloat. Well, this might have been MSNBC. One of those anchors was gloating about Steve Bannon. He's going to be locked up with violent criminals that have committed heinous acts. They were like so happy about it. But I mean, yeah, they are still CNN, and they actually only got 80,000 views, their ratings last night. And they're at the point now where they're wondering if the network can even be saved.
Well, they have a lot of problems at CNN. There's no doubt about that. A recent video I made, they were moving from downtown Atlanta into what they call the old Ted Turner building, which is right off of I-75. And I know this is going back to ancient history in the beginning of the 80s, but when the Turner operation started out, CNN and all of the family of companies, they were in this building right off of 75, a much smaller building. Then after they had success, they got this huge, nice building downtown Atlanta. Well, as I just said, they moved back into that building. Now they spun it with great fanfare like it was a good move. But anyway you slice it up, when you're downsizing like that, it's not because your company is doing fantastic. And I got one other point I want to get across here. David, you have an excellent point about how the job of being president ages you just as a normal person, as a person in control of all your faculties. Well, the thing of it is I was discussing this with someone else earlier, and when you look at Joe Biden's performance in this debate versus even the State of the Union, now clearly the State of the Union, my opinion is he had to be jacked up on like Provigil, some Ritalin, some type of stimulant. I think that's very clear, very obvious. I have nothing to base this on except just what I think. But I believe what probably happened is they heard President Trump talk about, oh, we're going to see jacked up Joe. So what they did is they lowered the dose and probably didn't give the dose to right before the debate. That way he had more of an even kill, because if you notice at the beginning of the debate, that's when he started fumbling and he was just talking a bunch of nonsense. And then let's just say it's a boxing match. The second round, near the end, he was a little more feisty, a little more, it's kind of when he started getting nasty, that nasty expression on his face. I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you see it that way at all? It just seemed like something clicked in round 2.
Yeah.
I started watching about 9:30, and it progressively Biden did get a bit more energetic. But Sapphire, when did you start watching? What did you notice?
I started watching straight up when it first started, and the first half hour, he was out to lunch. He started,
it did not. It didn't take long.
He did something interesting. He was asked one question. He started to answer it, and then he kind of zoned off. He looked down at the floor, looked off to the left, off to the right, and then he started talking about a totally different subject that wasn't even asked.
Well, whoever the brainchild that came up with this split screen nonsense, kind of like we're doing right now, where they had Trump on one side and Biden on the other side, they need to be fired and fired quickly. Somebody really messed that up.
This is what Biden wanted.
Sapphire
Biden
first,
wanted the split screen.
They did want that. That's what I thought. Yeah,
Biden wanted the split screen. He wanted no audience. He wanted the mics to be muted when they weren't talking.
Oh, yeah. No, I get that. I realized Joe Biden asked for this early debate. He thought this would benefit him. He wanted the right-hand podium, which I don't get that. Any attorney, anybody that has taken even a basic debate class knows you always want the final word. That's the reason why in a court of law, generally speaking, the prosecution always gets the last word because they have the burden beyond a reasonable doubt. So clearly somebody's not thinking. David, go ahead and make your points.
Oh, no. Yeah. I was thinking that CNN just wanted to do it for the ratings, regardless of how it turned out. But maybe the Biden administration also wanted the split screen, but you couldn't, especially around the time of the golf comment where Biden said, I've got a handicap of a -6. And then he couldn't say it with any confidence. He was looking down, and then Trump was looking at him like, are you here? Are you like physically you're here, but are your brain waves here? And it couldn't have been more pathetic. I see in your comments, I'll wait for you to introduce this. Somebody's talking about who Biden will be replaced with. That'll be an interesting conversation.
Okay, yeah. What I plan on doing is in a few minutes after this video finishes, we'll go ahead and turn to the comments, and we'll get some feedback on and get some questions and answers if we can. But yeah, I really am amazed at this whole charade. And one other point on something you touched on, David, you would think that even though CNN, MSNBC can't stand Donald Trump, let's call it what it is. Donald Trump has been the greatest gift, the greatest present to these legacy media cases, because they all have been doing terrible. And then when he was elected in 2016, hey, their stocks and everything went straight up, right? I hear stories about that all the time. So I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking, but they definitely have it in the tank for him. Let's just call it what it is. And I guess it is what it is. Let's go back to this vid and let's finish this up. Then we'll get into the comments and stuff.
Barack Obama tweeted, "Bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know. But this election is still a choice between someone who's fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who only cares about himself. It was messaging to keep a party and public on side. In Atlanta, it seems the difficulty isn't so much connecting with the message, but the messenger.
He was definitely off, very off.
In what way?
Just didn't know his subject matter. Seemed like he was tired and out of it.
I think that people should focus more on substance rather than the pace of delivery.
He did seem like he was over prepared. I mean, you have a man in Joe Biden that took off, what, a week to prepare? He had 16 advisors or something that were sparring with. Did any of the 16 people that worked for President Biden ever think one time, hey, this is a bad idea. This is bad. We need to pull the plug on this. I mean, hell, I would rather go through the complications or the pushback for canceling it than show up the way he showed up. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a complete and utter failure. I'm not sure if it could have went any worse. I even heard one of the talking heads mentioned something to the effect of they actually thought, and this wasn't a joke, but they actually thought that President Biden had a stroke during that one episode because he literally just stared down, froze. I mean, terrible.
We had someone who was speaking pretty much incoherent and we can't understand what he's saying, and then someone who's just awful and spewing lies. So it's not a good look for the American people. It really breaks my heart.
All right, I want to be careful with the music here, so
sure.
Let me mute that as we play through that. You know how that is. They get we don't want to get any kind of slap on
the copyright stuff.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Hello, Virginia. Did anybody last night watch a thing called The Debate?
As bad a night as it was for the president, the Biden campaign insists he will absolutely not be stepping down.
Yeah, and that's one of the oddest things, gentlemen, is it's clear that Joe Biden is not going anywhere. I mean, I think that's self-evident. During his speech that he gave today, he made it very clear, abundantly clear, that he's not going to step down. I got something really funny to tell you guys. I want your comment on it. Another friend of mine, he has like this channel where like they're talking all day long. It's kind of interesting, but it's just chit chat all day long. And he is pro-Trump. He's a young black guy, as a matter of fact, very, very pro-Trump, just loves Trump to death. And he has regulars on there. And it's kind of funny and interesting to listen to sometimes. Well, he went ahead today and recorded himself live as he was doing it. He was calling around to the different states trying to go ahead and file an elder abuse report for Joe Biden.
That's great.
I was laughing so hard I almost fell on my chair. And he would tell me, oh yeah, let me give you the first name. It's Jose. I have the middle name if you like it.
Wow.
And the people on the other end of the phone didn't know they didn't really know how to take it. And then they would push, oh, he's not really a resident of Georgia. Because he was like, well, didn't you see him last night? These people are abusing him. And you know what? We make a joke about this, but the reality is it's kind of hard to argue that this is not some form of elder abuse. When a man or woman gets in this type of position where they're basically being lied to about their capabilities, and he's got this type of stress on his shoulders, and it's constant. I mean, I don't know how you don't call that some type of elder abuse. David, comment?
Yeah, the thing is that Jill Biden aggressively wants Joe to remain in power. That's what her body language tells me. That's what the comments she makes tells me. I don't know if Joe Biden is in it as strongly as he used to be, but I know that his wife is absolutely not letting him step down. And in terms of the convention, I was talking to a client of mine was at the NRA. He's been an insider at Beltway, all that good stuff. He was saying they could vote to change convention rules and nominate someone else, but it would be a bloodbath, metaphorically speaking, because there's a lot of Biden loyalists who Biden has made promises to and these delegates in these various states, they're not going to back down. So you would have literally half of the Democrat Party saying, no, I'm still going to support Biden because I've already got this pork, these handouts, and then the other half saying no. So the people that are saying, will Michelle Obama replace him? I don't think she will, because everything she's indicated is that she enjoys the private life. She doesn't want her kids in the spotlight again. She doesn't like it as much. She's more of an introvert. Gavin Newsom and Kamala are too liberal. They're the California problem that's wrong with the whole country under Biden. So I think you're right. I think Biden's not going anywhere. It's going to be Biden v. Trump, November 5th.
Well, while I'm thinking about it, what do you guys think is the reason, if you have an opinion, you may not even have an opinion, but I have a point I want to make. Why do you think that President Biden will not do what's clearly in the best interest of the country and pass the baton on to someone like Gavin Newsom or somebody else, even Kamala Harris for that matter? Why do you think he will not do that? Why do you think his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, I'm being a little sarcastic there. Her doctorate degree is an honorary type thing, but I digress. I'm just curious if you have an opinion. Anybody have an opinion as to why they would not step aside? Sapphire, anything?
I kind of do. Also, Benny Johnson made some comments on Monday. He went out to dinner with some friends on Sunday, and he has some liberal Democratic friends. And he
Sapphire,
said,
give me 1 second here. I just want to say hello to everybody. We got a good group on my X platform. Looks like Red Pill. You got at least 34 of your folks on there. We have on on Facebook, I'm sorry. And then on YouTube, looks like I got 16, 17 people. I got my friend over on Twitch. And then David, you got another 30-some people joining you on your channel. So hello to everybody. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment, hit the thumbs up button. It does help the algorithm. It allows the YouTube essentially to pass it out to more people. So if you would support the channel by simply hitting the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channels, it is greatly appreciated. And Sapphire, go ahead and finish your thought there.
Benny Johnson said that his friends, which he has some pretty high power political friends, told him that the plot is not to replace Joe Biden. The plot is that they will make him resign.
And how do they think that that's going to happen to make him resign?
He said that they have told him that if he does not outright win the debate, that they will go full frontal and force him to resign.
Okay, I got a comment about that, but
blackmail him.
first, David, go right ahead. What do you have to say about this?
I mean, that is a different angle. Yeah. I mean, the deep state collectively, I think of as the war, personally, I think of as the war machine, the military industrial complex, the contractors, and the bureaucrats in the executive branch who always want more government. So if those group of individuals collectively come together and decide they want somebody or don't want somebody, they can obviously cause them hell, as they've been with Trump for years with the Russia hoax. Now they could try to, blackmail Biden or come up with some kind of similar indictment against Biden, but that might motivate him to stay in more, though, because he wants presidential immunity, because the Supreme Court's going to rule on that soon. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I don't see him dropping out or resigning, but it could happen. I mean, we're in uncharted territory. This is the first time in our republic. So
I know that Tommy Lauren, that real good-looking blonde-headed girl, forgot her channel. It's on Outkick or something. She's been saying for a long time that they're going to replace him if one way or the other. And her bet was at their convention somehow, some way, they're going to push him out. My personal opinion is it's not going to happen. Well, short of him literally dropping over dead or where he's truly incapacitated because he's in a, God forbid, a coma or something like that. If it's short of a catastrophic health issue, I think it's going to be Biden and Trump coming up this November. And on the point that I said I wanted to make pertaining to why Joe Biden, his wife, whatever, will not step aside for the good of the country. It goes back, in my humble opinion, to human nature. And this is something I love talking about, is human nature. And I'm going to give you the real short Cliff Notes version of this. And it basically has to do, as I said, with human nature. One of my favorite non-religious individuals in history, and if you were with me at 12 o'clock today, you heard me briefly talk about this, was George Washington. And people are like, what, George Washington? Well, it's not that he was necessarily the founder, one of the founding fathers of America. What is so unique that I don't think he gets enough credit for in history is, to my knowledge, it's the only time in history, and if anybody knows anything different, please put it in the comments. I would be interested to know this. He is the first person in recorded history to ever be at the pinnacle of power. I mean, this guy was president. Historians argue that there was a good chance he could have made himself king if he chose to. But what he did that was so amazing is he was at the pinnacle of power and he walked away. He started the example 230 years, whatever it's been now, years ago, and without one bullet, without one person dying, without any type of bloodshed, he went from the top of being power and then transferred it to another individual. And I just don't think he gets enough credit for what he did. Again, it has never been done in history, and I just think that that's so profound. It is so contrary to human nature, and that's what's going on with Joe Biden and his wife. You are in power. You are literally the most powerful man in the world. It's really hard to argue with that statement, and it's very, very difficult to walk away. Any comments on that, David? Start with you. Anything on that?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, it is an exceptional man that can handle power like that. And really the whole enlightenment that inspired the Constitution, that our rights are given to us by God. Even if you're an atheist and you believe the universe is God, which I'm a Christian, but I was saying for everybody to think that our rights are from God was a novel concept. And I worry that so many people in my millennial generation and then Gen Z, they've been coerced into thinking that the government is responsible for granting us our rights. And that's just another thing that the Washington and the founders had, the mindset that I admire, in addition to him stepping down. But I looked up really quickly during about the DNC, their ability to vote to change rules. Yes, during the 2020 Democratic primary campaign, there were accusations that the Democratic National Committee had disadvantaged Bernie Sanders. They changed the debate qualification rules. This change seemed to be as potentially limiting Sanders' ability to participate. Additionally, there were concerns about the influence of superdelegates and the overall structure of the primary process, which they argue favored more establishment candidates. These issues contributed to an ongoing debate. I know right after the fact, there was this woman who was the DNC chair at the time. I can't remember her name, middle-aged Black woman. She said in an article that the DNC was rigged. She was the chairwoman. And then she retracted that statement like 2 weeks later. I don't know if the Clintons threatened her or whatnot. But I'm still with you, JR. I think Biden will be the nominee. But theoretically, that confirms it is possible they could change the rules.
On that same subject, the way I understand it, and listen, when I know something, I tell you I know it. When I don't, I tell you I don't know it. I have a basic understanding of this, and I agree with you again that these people can probably change the rules if they want to, but there is a law in Ohio. I don't really think it is an old law. I think it's relatively new. They have to have their candidates solidified, I believe, by August 11th. So you don't really have a long fuse on this. And if they don't make a change by then they technically cannot make a change. And as I said earlier, by the DNC's own laws and their bylaws, short of actual death, actual disability where the man cannot literally function, or his resignation, I don't see anybody stopping him. So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think once again you're going to be right on that, David. I really wish he would put the.
No, you're right too. We're both right. But
it's a sad situation, and I don't know if this makes any sense. But even though I don't agree with any of these people are socialists. I don't want these people in power. If they were to win, I want a president that can do the job and is up to the job, and our enemies know he's on the job. Surely you feel the same way, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
Sapphire,
sorry.
any comments on that?
Yeah.
My thought is that we have 25th Amendment.
Yeah, but that amendment is such a poorly written amendment, and that is one nasty way. I don't even know if it's been tested. It hasn't been tested, I don't think, but it's just a very poorly written law. It says something to the effect of that if they take a majority vote of the cabinet, but a president that is shrewd could simply fire his cabinet before they take a vote. And then there's no way to remove a president other than, through an impeachment of some sort, I guess. So, I mean, hopefully we don't end up with a constitutional crisis.
That would be rich.
Yeah.
Biden
only time.
Go ahead, David.
Biden
Go ahead, Seth.
hasn't fired a single individual since he took office.
Yeah, I heard that too. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, they love growing the bureaucracy. That's their thing, and that's why the employees in D.C. love Democrats winning. So it appears that the 25th Amendment has been used several times since its ratification in 1967. One of the last times it's been used, Section 3, the temporary transfers of power, was when Reagan temporarily transferred power to VP George H.W. Bush. I guess that's when that was attempted. I'm not going to say the A word to not get your video demonetized. But the thing that happened in the 80s to Reagan, that was invoked then.
I want to take a quick moment. Gloria, I want to thank you and give you a quick call out. Thank you so much for the super chat, young lady. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody and all of y'all who have supported the channel. It is definitely something I don't take for granted, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much, Gloria. Okay, and just so I'm clear on that comment there, David, you're saying that the 25th Amendment has been used or has not been used?
It has several times. I had just asked ChatGPT really quickly. They only mentioned the specific time. They say it was the last time was Section 3, the temporary transfer of powers, was when Reagan had that incident. And then while he was in surgery for some hours, he gave...
he was able to transfer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So apparently there's a provision where they can temporarily transfer power under the 25th Amendment, but the actual removing a president by cabinet vote, I don't think that's happened. But technically, as far as temporary transfer, I think that it's probably good that they wrote the amendment like that, because that is common sense. I mean, nowadays people have procedures and stuff like this that go on from time to time. I want to read one thing, and then I want to get to some comments real quick and make sure we acknowledge our folks in the chat here. Elder abuse, according to Wikipedia, it's also known as elder mistreatment, senior abuse, abuse later in life. Okay, we got the idea. Is, by their definition, a single or repeated act or lack of appropriate action occurring within any relationship where there is an expectation of trust, which causes harm or distress to an older person. That's a pretty broad definition, and I would think that would fit a president that is being under, I would say probably being under distress by putting that type of stress on a person that doesn't have the faculties to deal with it. I meant, I guess on some level it could be a little bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's too much of a stretch. I mean, clearly the man can't do the job, and yet the people in his circle are abusing him in that particular sense. Agreed? Anybody comment? Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I would think if someone is elderly and they have full mental capacity and they're aware of the stress and they consent to it, it would not be elder abuse. But I don't know that if he can fully consent to it. He just, they shove papers on his desk. It's like, let's start World War III, and then he signs it. They shove papers on his desk and say, let's replace the workforce with people that will undercut the American wage. We'll pay them $0.25 for $1. We'll pay Americans. And he just signs it. So I don't know if he has consent.
Yeah, clearly he is in a situation he shouldn't be in. I can't think of a job probably more stressful than being president of the United States. You literally have the world on your shoulders. This is a man, I mean, think about this. This man's walking around with the nuclear football, which is the codes to launch the weapons. And technically speaking, this man has the sole discretionary authority to launch. And I don't know about you guys, that's troubling. Very troubling on so many levels. Let's bounce through these comments before I switch gears. I want to spend a little time before we adjourn on the Supreme Court. I think it's some very interesting things that have come to pass. If you see some of your folks in here, David, you're welcome to give them a shout out. I've already said hello to Julianne. Thank you. Of course, Rosemarie. We got Toy Mafia. I think that's one of your folks there, David.
Yeah. What's up, Mafia?
And that's another one of yours, Lori Kessler. Hello. And of course, Terry. It's always good to have you in the chat, my friend. I think he's actually one of your visitors too. And we got Julianne again.
Good to see everybody.
Right, so, yeah. Hello, Lori. I want to make sure if I see any questions or anything in here. Wayne had this question or comment. The problem is Joe Biden is so corrupt. Yep, paid off. You know, he is definitely corrupt. It's striking just how corrupt he is. I think President Trump did a good job mentioning that during the debate too. He's over there in Ukraine saying, hey, if this guy is not fired, then you guys are not going to get this money or something to that effect. Hello, Mary.
Yeah.
And Joe's answer was, that never happened.
He said something like that. He's in such in such clear denial.
It's on videotape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in clear denial. Zach, it's always good to have you in the chat, my friend.
Something real quick about Ukraine. Just this week, Joe signed the papers to let military contractors go into Ukraine. That was signed this week.
Yeah, you hear President Trump talking about sleepwalking into World War III. I don't think that that's hyperbole. I think that is a very serious, present, and real situation and threat. Matter of fact, David, we talked about that on your program recently. What comments do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that there are, when you start a battle between two major powers, that instability leads to more instability. We had discussed, you and I, how North Korea and South Korea, that the U.S. and South Korea has bombed the strait, the area between North and the South. We have confirmation that Cuba is now going to have hypersonic missiles that, at least to our public knowledge, the U.S. military doesn't have the ability to stop hypersonic missiles. They're going to be given to Venezuela. China's been more aggressive on Taiwan. When you see a world power like us distracted, when countries that oppose us, they see it as an opportunity to geographically go after what they want. And the Democrats in the Senate are considering a bill to draft women. And they've automatically are drafting men now. That it wasn't really a huge change. It just made it where you don't have to check a box when you turn 18. It's just automatic. But yeah, we could be walking in that direction, and it's I blame us entirely. I think we overthrew the government in Ukraine. It was a pro-Russian government, and I think NATO has become the thing that it was invented to stop. That's my personal opinion.
I think you're right. And by the way, I want to give a quick shout out to Monique. Thanks for joining us again. I do appreciate it. It's always good to have. We got a long comment there from Carson right there. Yeah, he's on top of it. Appreciate everybody's comments, taking time to comment. All right, let's drill down into this next subject here. As you guys may or may not be aware, we have a ton of Supreme Court decisions that's been handed down in the recent week or two. And I don't know, other than to tell you, we got a lot more still coming down the pike. Now, let me show you this real quick. I want to share my screen and show you guys a few things. If you're ever wondering where they get these Supreme Court decisions, or if you're interested in doing it yourself, it's not too complicated. Let's see how we got this here. Okay, I'm going to share. Okay, here we go. All right, so take a look at this, gentlemen and folks at home. I'm going to try to blow this up as big as I can get it. But anyway, this is the Supreme Court's page online. And all you have to do is click on their section for opinions. It's a little complicated, but once you get the idea of it, it's pretty easy. And every time they issue the opinions, this is what came down today, this number 54, 55, 56. These three cases, each and every one of them, extremely important, and by my take, are very interesting. If you're interested in this type of stuff, make sure you subscribe to my channel at JR Dukes, because I plan on taking a look at each and every one of these cases in depth. We're going to actually go through the paperwork. So here's one of the cases right here. I just want to briefly talk about this with the panel here. All right, this is Loper Bright Enterprises et al., which is Latin for and others, and then the individual suing the Secretary of Commerce. Now, this is a very important case, and I don't want to sound like I'm drumming this up anymore, but listen, this could be potentially bigger than even Trump's immunity case, if you can imagine that, because folks, these are the type of cases that affects our lives each and every day. And I think that's one of the reasons I enjoy talking about these subjects, is these type of cases literally affect every aspect of our lives. Now, without getting too deep in the weeds, we have this thing here called the Chevron, or you may hear it called the Chevron principle. And to put it in extremely layman's terms, basically what you have is, our government is ran by like secretaries of this, maybe Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Housing. You've heard that, right? Well, even on a state level, depending on the state that you're in, the states may have secretaries depending on what the position is. Also, they have individuals that may have a title like administrator of this particular office, or the Consumer Affairs Division, or whatever. When they write the laws that enable these agencies, if you will, what happens is they say, here's a list of stuff that this agency can do or not do. Here's a list of things that's illegal or not illegal. And then here's what happens. The courts a while back said, and they just determined at the Chevron doctrine, that effectively they can make up the rules as they go along. For example, the law may say this is not an inclusive or exhaustive list of everything you cannot do. And the administrator or the secretary simply has the authority to go in and change these laws, these rules. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense that they can do that, but this is, in my estimation, along with what David's been saying, the definition of the deep state. It's these unelected bureaucrats that have way too much power over our lives. And in this particular case, what you have happen is, and this has been going on even with the EPA. Do you know they have been trying to actually track every mud hole that you can imagine? In Texas, we used to call them tanks, like little areas you water your cattle. Well, the EPA, for example, has been going in under their authority and trying to regulate each one of these little tanks, if you can believe it or not. And thank God, as of today, and then Dave, I'm going to refer to you for comment. Take a look right here, held. The Administrative Procedure Act, and the Administrative Procedure Act is essentially the rules to flow for a trial within the agency. In other words, each agency is allowed to have like a mini trial that's actually ran by that agency, and the decision comes from that agency. Isn't that nuts? Well, here's what it was. It says, and the courts may not deter to an agency interpretation of the law simply because the statute is ambiguous. What they have always done, if something wasn't specifically in there or something was unclear, which is what ambiguous means, is they used to just make it up and say, no, these are the new laws, these are the new rules. Well, here it is. This is what's beautiful about this. Chevron is overruled. This is really a great day. And if you didn't know this, I'm glad I could tell you this because it's extremely important. And the final comment on this, I think it will tell us who ruled. A lot of these decisions come down to very, very close decisions. A lot of times it's like a 6-3 ruling. You're going to have effectively what is the conservative majority up against the liberals, the three liberals that are actually on the court. And recently we've had some really weird decisions, and that you've sometimes get them crossing over lines and stuff like that. Here it is right here. You have Chief Justice Roberts delivered the opinion, so we can count it up ourselves. You got Roberts, Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett joined. And then it says Thomas, J, and Gorsuch filed concurring opinions. So you have, is that 8 by my count? Let's see, 8. And then you got J, let's see, filed. Okay, so you have Kagan filed the dissenting opinion with Sotomayor and Jackson. So you have your 6-3 split. If it was not for President Trump, you talk about God's providential call, God's providential care on each and every one of us. Boom. This would have been completely reversed, because right now you had a 6-3 ruling. If it would have been Hillary Clinton that won the 2016 election, you can redo the math the other way, and it would have been an affirmed decision. Absolutely amazing. David, I want your opinion on that. What do you think about that, my friend? Any comments on that?
Yeah, a lot of comments. You're so right. I mean, the judicial branch, the Supreme Court's the only thing holding the Constitution together right now. But the impact of the Chevron doctrine is, I don't think most people realize how big it is. 75% of Joe Biden's green agenda had relied upon the Chevron doctrine. It's dead. His green agenda is just gone. It's devastated. This is the environmental equivalent of Roe being overturned. That's how important this taking away these regulatory powers when the law is ambiguous, how important it is. It is. I'm so happy about it. Taking away those bureaucrats' power. We need to do even more, but this is a massive step. All those regulations that were going to come up. Oh, you got to have a gas car or an electric by this time, or you're going to have so many feet away from, like, so many building regulations, so many agencies that have these ridiculous. I heard of one guy, he had a cookie shop, and the EPA, or no, sorry, not the EPA, the FDA told him his freezer door had to open outward. And then the agriculture came by and said his freezer had to open inward. And it took him like 3 years and $100,000 to get the departments to talk to each other and say, hey, you're telling me one thing about my freezer door and you're telling me one thing about the other. So that's going to help small businesses too. It's amazing.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. It's exactly the way it is. By the way, a quick shout out to Zach. Zach, I appreciate your super sticker, young man. Thank you so much. You've been a supporter of the channel for a long time, and I sincerely appreciate your contribution. Sapphire, any comments on that right there? Any what we've been talking about?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
We here in Montana have been waiting and waiting for this. There's a man in Wyoming that had a ditch that ran through his property. The EPA ruled it a navigable waterway.
Wow.
And they forced him to do all kinds of things.
Tyrant.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars to, acquiesce.
Right. No, I've heard a million horror stories like that.
After he did all that, then they said, well, we denied your building permit.
So infuriating.
A quick thing, Zach gave me yet another super sticker, and I appreciate that. And he said his cat is at fault. So give your cat a special pet for me, Zach. I appreciate that. Folks, these courts with the Supreme Court, I'm telling you something. It is really clear that our founding fathers had a special anointing on them. I mean, they had to have had. It has really worked for 200 some years now. And even in these perilous times that we're facing with all this nonsense that's going on, this lawfare, this stressing of our democracy, of our constitutional republic, it is amazing that they had the wisdom to set up something like a Supreme Court that can effectively rebalance things and hopefully correct things. I'm very optimistic about this opinion coming down Monday pertaining to the immunity. I'm not sure if it's going to be absolute immunity like it should be, but it's going to be something, and we'll talk about it later time why this is going to be a real big deal. And I want to mention also, let me see if this pulls up right here, because it is this one other case we have to talk about. And the reason for that is we're talking about these J6 individuals on here. And this is the case right here. And I know that David has to be feeling good about this. This is Fisher versus the United States. And basically, this is kind of similar to what they were doing in New York City against former President Donald Trump by weaving together these novel legal theories or these legal statutes. In other words, they can't find an exact statute to fit a crime that they want to charge someone with, specifically these J6 hostages. So what they did is they went ahead and they used this statute that you see right here. I think I got this blown up. It's about as big as I can get it. And just to briefly go over this, it says, this is what the Supreme Court held today. To prove a violation of this section of the law, that's 1512C2, the government must establish that the defendant impaired the ability or integrity for use in an official proceeding of records, documents, objects, or other things used in an official proceeding or attempt to do so. In layman's terms, this all came from Enron. Y'all remember Enron years ago? And they wanted in the future to have a more direct statute that would be applicable for people that were allegedly shredding records or doing stuff that they just simply found distasteful, and they wanted a way to prosecute these people. And this was the statute that they came up with. Well, the Supreme Court, rightly so today, handed down a victory for President Donald Trump because he has been charged under this same legal theory on some of his cases, and all of the January 6th defendants were simply charged with this. And it's important to understand they have been using this statute that was struck down today as a club. This is the way our court system works. So y'all need to make sure you hear me on this. If you hear nothing else I talk about today, hear this. The way they do it, this particular statute carried a 20-year prison sentence with it. So what they would do is they come up with a Medic 4 huge club, and they get ready to hit you over the head with it. And they're like, listen, we're going to take you out. We're going to take you down. You're going to lose 20 years of your life if you don't play ball with us. And play ball means you're going to plead guilty, and here's what you're going to do. And when you're faced with losing everything you've ever had monetarily wise, trying to defend yourself at a trial, and then you're faced with 20 years of your life plus being gone, because you see how honest our court system is, especially with this type of nonsense. You're going to plead guilty. Trust me. You think you wouldn't? You would. You're going to start speaking in tongues. You're going to bark like a dog. You're going to do whatever these people tell you to do. I promise you will. You don't want to be stuck in a cage for 20 plus years. And thank God today this was struck down. Again, this was the major law they used to beat these people into these guilty verdicts. So when you hear in the news, oh, these J6ers were guilty, sure, they were guilty because they all pled guilty. Well, they pled guilty because they didn't want to lose their life.
Coercion.
That's exactly what happened. It is coercion, and this is unbelievably legal coercion. So let me make this final point, and then we'll go to our panels for comment. In this decision, you had Roberts, the Chief Justice, deliver the opinion. You had Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and here's what's weird. I like to fell out of my chair today. Justice Jackson. Jackson
Wow.
also went with them. And here's what's shocking. Well, first of all, Jackson filed a concurring opinion. She just wrote her own little exhibit A, I guess you can call it, to the thing. No big deal. They do that all the time. But here's the shocker. Hold on to your chair. Barrett filed a dissenting opinion. You know, the female that Trump put on the court, the Trump appointee, she's normally very conservative. Now, on my little chart I've got of how the justices fare from right to left, she's going to move a little bit after this because she joined Sotomayor and Kagan in the dissent, which is just shocking. So another 6-3 decision, but it's not the normal decision that you normally would think would come down. So just interesting on that point. Let me ask David, what do you think about that, my friend?
I mean, that is semi-surprising that Amy Coney Barrett ruled against that. I have mixed feelings about her, along with Roberts as well. But I mean, this is huge because it was the key point that this charge was being used against is non-violent offenders. I mean, it was used against some violent offenders, but a large majority of like grandmas and people that did nothing to harm anyone, and they weren't even aware they weren't where they weren't supposed to be. Some of them, and it is huge. I mean, how are you going to take a document statute pertaining to like deleting an Excel file or a Word document or shredding a copy paper and saying, oh, that applies to people being somewhere standing in the wrong area at the wrong time? And it's consistent. It's a consistent theme of the Biden administration. They tried to get employers, if you had 10 or more employees, you would be fined $100,000 per month if you didn't get your 10 employees, if you didn't force them to take the vax. And that was a misinterpretation.
I remember that.
Yeah, there was that. And then there's the student loans where Biden is misinterpreting the statute that you're supposed to forgive a few people under special circumstances. So it's just a pattern. This is being a third example of them misusing statutes to their evil gains.
Exactly. Sapphire, any comment?
Yes. You also have many of the J6ers. The reasons why they accepted the guilty plea is because they were held in jail for a year without legal representation, without ever being allowed to go to court. And at the end of that year, they were told, look, you either accept a plea or we will keep you here indefinitely.
They have, of course, you know, that, again, that's something I love talking about and bringing to the public's attention because, you know, until this thing happened with Donald Trump, a lot of folks out there had no real idea just how corrupt and unfair our court system is. Now, don't get me wrong, our court system is still probably the best in the world, but that's not saying much. What I am saying is you want to understand it and know how to stay out of it. And that's something I try to focus on as much as possible. Okay, listen, we're going to land the plane at this time. I do want to take a minute. If y'all would like, I'd like to say a quick prayer. I got this idea from David. I think it's a great thing to do. We're going to pray for our country at this time, and feel free to join me if you like. Father in heaven, we come to you thanking you for today and all of our blessings. At this time, Father, we ask that you would put your hand on our country. Have your Holy Spirit with our leaders to be there to guide, guard, and direct them. Help our nation to continue to persevere and overcome and to do that which pleases you, Father. Please allow our country to continue and to prosper and to continue to have your special blessing that we have obviously had for many hundreds of years now. We ask all this, Father, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I I want to thank David for being with us today over at Red Pill News. I want to thank Sapphire for joining us today. Dave, would you like to take a second and say hello to, by the way, we got another super chat from Rosemary. Thank you. If you would like, David, would you go ahead and tell us about your channel briefly and where folks can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Red Pill News, just to type the @ sign on YouTube. Best way to stay in contact with me is go to rhinostopper.com. Sign up for my email list. You're going to get a candidate research guide where you can learn the whole financial history of the Republicans in your area to make sure they're not rhinos.
Cool.
Fantastic. All right. Sapphire, any final comment? Appreciate you joining us today, young man.
Yeah, I'd like us to do a future stream about Vivek.
Okay. I think that's something we can definitely talk about and do. All right. Well, folks, I definitely appreciate each and every one of you being here. I definitely don't take it for granted. It is really a pleasure to have an opportunity to sit down with everybody, chat, have a discussion. I always say, keep that mind free. Never give up. Till next time, I am J.R. Dukes.